We continue our discussions on America since the 1990s, looking at the Gulf War, presidency of Bill Clinton, look at Al Gore, the Family Medical Leave Act, and the War on Terror. The Cold War wound down. The West began turning its attention more and more towards the Middle East in terms of foreign policy. The region had long been unstable. Many nations were beset by internal civil strife and differences of religion. Though people were mostly Muslim, there were many differences within Islam that were sparking many fierce differences, tribal differences, ethnic differences. And Israel continued to be a source of consternation for many Arab nations, kept rallying other people against the Israelis and even sponsoring terrorist acts against Israel and Western nations such as the United States that supported Israel. In addition, these nations, in spite of their oil wealth, were beset by deep poverty and deep repression. And very little freedom in some of these countries, though some of them are very Western and reasonably moderate in their freedoms, but still many limitations on it. But the oil wealth of these nations, while it did supply for many a comfortable social welfare net, for many, though, it was simply a concentration of wealth in the upper classes. But energy was the focus of the Middle East. Like I said, a good portion of the world's oil supply came from the Middle East at this point. And though there have been many calling for more fuel efficiency, converting to other methods of energy, such as renewable sources, such as solar power, fusion power, and so forth, wind power, even tidal power, biomass power, and all sorts of it. In the 1990s and the early 21st century, these power levels, the power generated by these alternative forms of energy, were not seen as enough to power many large cities or large nations. And in addition, automobiles and most forms of transportation still ran on gasoline converted from oil. So it became a special problem in 1990 when Iraq invaded its tiny oil-rich neighbor, Kuwait. So Saddam Hussein had been dictator of Iraq since about 1978. He'd seized power in a coup. He was brutal towards his opponents, having no reservation about executing people, executing dissidents. Back in the 1980s, there was a group called the Kurds in northern Iraq who were staged a rebellion against his rule. Kurds had long sought independence. Saddam Hussein responded with the chemical warfare attacks on the civilian population, leaving thousands dead. But in the 1980s, Iraq was seen as a stable enemy of Iran. The United States hated Iran, Iran hated the United States, so the United States gave a lot of weapons to Saddam Hussein in Iraq in his war against Iran. The Iran-Iraq war lasted 8 years. It would leave 1 million dead. As we see the irony of the Iran-Contra affair, the United States ended up giving weapons to both sides. But in 1990, Saddam Hussein was preparing his nation, and it was in the midst of the border dispute with Kuwait, particularly over oil drilling. See, the Kuwaitis were kind of drilling, kind of a sideways drilling over the border, or under the borders, as they say, as it was, into Iraqi territory. Iraq insisted they stop, and Kuwait balked, and so Saddam Hussein invaded and took over the city-state in a matter of just a few hours on August 2nd, 1990. Well, Saddam Hussein didn't expect the West to respond, but the West responded very forcefully, threatening war for Iraq but not quite Kuwait. Saddam refused, and the West, mostly Britain, the United States, France, and Saudi Arabia, but also 24 other allied nations, began building up its forces on the Kuwaiti border with Saudi Arabia. The United States' first major military engagement since Vietnam. Initially, the buildup was called Operation Desert Shield. But it rattled the nerves of many Americans feared if this be a war over the price of gasoline, the U.S. would suffer high casualties. But George Bush Sr. built up the U.S. forces at about 400,000 in anticipation of a land war and set deadline January 15, 1991 for an Iraqi withdrawal. Iraq refused, and on January 16th, the Allies unleashed the second part of the Operation Desert Storm. Initiated a devastating aerial support on Iraqi positions in Kuwait and Iraq. It slowly wore down the Iraqis, and on February 24th, the land invasion began, sweeping the Iraqis out of Kuwait and southern Iraq in just under 100 hours. Nearly 100,000 Iraqis lost their lives compared to just 200 American deaths. The quick victory and limited casualties sent American spirits soaring, prompting Bush to declare the U.S. had beaten what he called the Vietnam Syndrome. But the Allies had stopped short of taking out Saddam in Baghdad. Ceasefires reached on February 28th. In the wake of Iraq's defeat, Shiite Muslims in southern Iraq and Kurdish rebels in northern Iraq began fighting to overthrow Saddam. But Saddam had rallied what was left of his forces and defeated these uprisings and remained in power for many more years. But Bush refused to go into Baghdad to take out Saddam because he feared that taking out Saddam Hussein would undermine Iraq and leave the United States in a difficult position of having to occupy a hostile nation for many years. And the U.S. would have to face possibility of civil wars, civil unrest, and terrorist attacks on American troops. So instead, Bush and the United Nations instituted a series of no-fly zones in northern and southern Iraq to try to limit Saddam Hussein's influence. Now, after the Gulf War, Bush's popularity soared to 90%, but he's unable to capitalize on this. The deficit grew worse. Many people remember his tax hike he passed in 1990. His taxes as a deficit soared. Bush had raised taxes in spite of his promise not ever to raise taxes, and became disillusioned with them. By 1991, the economy had entered into a recession, with unemployment reaching 8%. High corporate debts from the 1980s caused a dramatic number of bankruptcies. The middle and lower classes were concerned about their dwindling buying power. The effects of this recession lingered for months, and many grew to despise Bush after continuing insistence that there was no recession at all. And going back to the very problem, people aren't so much interested in the macroeconomic situation, they're interested in the microeconomic situation at home. Can they pay the bills? Can they keep a roof over their head? So enter into all this in 1992, and Ross Perot, a colorful, self-made Texas billionaire from Texarkana, many called on to run for president. People were impressed with his knowledge of the economy and world affairs, and his shoot from the hip style. On a CNN interview, Perot said he'd run only if people would put his name on the ballot in all 50 states. People did. Perot was riding high on the polls, speaking of the budget deficit, the problems of the economy. But shortly before the Democratic Convention in summer of 1992, he inexplicably dropped out of the race. Cited concern for the safety of his family, accusing Republicans of trying to disrupt his daughter's wedding. Decided to revitalize the Democratic Party, endorsed the frontrunner, Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton. Now, Clinton had long been a powerful figure in Arkansas politics. Very popular. He was first elected governor in 1978, after having been elected Attorney General in 1976. He was the youngest governor in the country at that time. Idealistic, full of energy, But a number of missteps in his first term caused him to be defeated for re-election in 1980, but he apologized for his mistakes and was re-elected easily in 1982 and been served for governor since then. But Clinton, however, had been dogged by questions of his character, rumors of extramarital affairs and so forth, but nevertheless he brushed these concerns aside and surged ahead of the polls. He ultimately spoke for the hopes of the nation. Clinton was born to a single mother in Hope, Arkansas. His father was a traveling salesman, died before he was born. His mother struggled to support the two, and another son that she had from a second marriage. His mother became a nurse, but Clinton had growing up in Hot Springs before going off to college. Former University of Arkansas law professor. He's widely respected in Arkansas. Between the two senators of David Pryor and Dale Bummer, also former governors of Arkansas, the three made a powerful triumvirate which dominated Arkansas politics and kept Arkansas moving in a steadily forward direction. At the convention, he's portrayed as the man from Hope. And he chose Tennessee Senator Al Gore as his running mate, particularly whom of youth and vitality took to the road. Republican convention, however, was a disaster. Social conservatives were incensed at Bush. Pat Buchanan, a former Nixon speechwriter, an anti-Semite, had dogged him across the country, scoring an upset 40% in New Hampshire primary. Buchanan spoke at the convention as he endorsed Bush, launching a blistering attack on Clinton and playing up right-wing themes. But the bitter tone repelled many Americans, and Clinton continued to rise high in the polls. But later that fall, Perot jumped back into the race and rose again to the polls. Clinton, however, ended up winning the triangulated race. Exit polls, however, suggested that Clinton would have won re-election if Perot were not the race anyway. Perot drawn fairly equally for both Clinton and Bush. But Clinton gets 43% of the popular vote, 370 electoral votes. Bush 38%, 168 electoral votes. And Perot 19%, no electoral votes. Clinton entered office. Hopeful tone, hoping to move many issues forward on the environment, on economic reform, deficit. One of the most noted accomplishments was 1993, the Family and Medical Leave Act. This provided 12 weeks of unpaid leave for employees who were just covering for the birth of a child, adoption, or some family emergency. Now, Clinton, like many other Democrats since Franklin Roosevelt, hoped to institute a universal health care system. First Lady Hillary Clinton had headed up these efforts, trying to institute a universal system, but Republican criticisms of the system as too costly and questions over government intervention in the economy ultimately doomed the effort by 1994. Plus the rumors of Clinton's rumors swirling around Clinton and Arkansas politics after the 1994 elections, leading the Democrats to lose control of both houses of Congress. Now, Clinton had managed to raise the minimum wage, institute a number of other reforms, but mostly able to concentrate on government spending with this remainder of his time in office. By 1997, Clinton had managed to bring the deficit down to zero. By the time he left office in 2001, he left office with a $100 billion surplus. Now, after the 1992-4 elections, the midterms, Republicans hoped to parlay their success into defeating Clinton for re-election. Clinton was renominated by the Democrats, The Republicans went with former Kansas Senator Bob Dole. He resigned during the campaign to concentrate on his run for the presidency. Dole had been the senator from Kansas since 1970. He was Bob Dole's running mate in 1976, ran for president in 1980 and 88. Ross Perot jumped in again, making his independent movement called the Reform Party. Well, Dole, being a World War II veteran, he believed that America's best days of leadership were in the past. Clinton did not represent a step forward, but a step down. And Dole promised the American people to be what's called a bridge to the past. Clinton seized on the team and American hopes for the future, saying he'd be a bridge to the future. So all this crisscross of bridges and everything. Clinton ended up winning the election fairly easily. Clinton gaining 49% of the vote to 41% for Dole, 8% for Perot. Clinton getting 379 electoral votes to 179 electoral votes for Dole. Well, sometime in Clinton's second term, he started dating again. 1997, a scandal erupted where apparently Clinton was having an illicit affair with a White House intern, named Monica Lewinsky. The Republicans have been dogging Clinton since he first ran for president in 1992 about his marital life. Several Republican lawyers had brought forward lawsuits on behalf of several women who he allegedly had affairs with. And they attempted to seize on a comment Clinton had made in one deposition that he had not had another affair, but after the rumor that report that he had this relationship with this young intern, Republicans immediately began moving towards impeachment based on perjury. Perjury is a serious charge, but Clinton, however, the question was whether the perjury was material to the case. Materiality, how central a truth or statement is in a deposition or testimony, that determines whether or not it is perjury or not. If you're making a charge against somebody, it turns out the charge is a complete lie, and the evidence says you're lying completely, that's perjury. But if you're lying, but if you say something like, yeah, I saw this person on Sunday when actually you saw them on Wednesday, that isn't necessarily perjury. Especially something very peripheral to the case. Now, here's what happens. Republicans led by House Speaker Newt Gingrich again pressing for impeachment against Clinton. They draw out three charges of impeachment, echoing the impeachment of Nixon the attempted impeachment of Nixon in 1974. The House Judiciary Committee trying to indict Clinton on perjury, destruction of justice, and contempt of Congress, similar to what Nixon did. But what ends up happening, though, is Clinton believes he can beat the charges. Hillary stood by Clinton, somewhat embarrassed by the whole thing. And so, taking a cue from the First Lady, the American people rallied around Clinton, deciding they didn't want the Republicans and their extremist agenda to dominate, control, decide who was going to be president. They didn't want the election to be undone, especially over something that basically was a personal issue. That's what the American people saw it. So, with impeachment, the House basically voted to indict Clinton. Then the trial was brought over to the Senate. The proceedings brought over to the Senate for trial. But here's the thing. They're trying to impeach Clinton over an extramarital affair. This is what happens. Newt Gingrich, Speaker of the House, was having an affair at the time. He had to resign, and the woman he would later marry himself, later married, was the woman he was cheating with at the time. Bob Livingston, Congressman from Louisiana, resigned, the heir apparent to becoming Speaker of the House, about to take the speakership when it's revealed he's having an extramarital affair. So he has to resign from Congress. Congressman Hyde from Illinois, head of the House Judiciary Committee, admitted that yes, he'd had an extramarital affair himself about 20 years before. Dennis Hastert then comes in as Speaker of the House. Actually, the longest-serving Republican Speaker in House history, but while there were no rumors circulating around him at the time, in 2015, it was revealed after he retired from Congress that when he was a high school wrestling coach in the 1970s and 1980s, apparently he was messing with young boys and was convicted in 2016 of child molestation. So the irony is, all the House leaders trying to impeach Clinton over extramarital affair were all guilty of their own indiscretion, shall we say. Well, it gets to the House, it gets to the Senate. The Senate is very narrowly divided between the Democrats and Republicans, and the charges die. The Senate is unable to get the two-thirds majority vote against Clinton. In fact, they aren't even going to get a majority vote on the charges against Clinton. So the matter drops by early 1999. Republicans are embarrassed, but Clinton ends up his presidency on a high note. In the Clinton presidency, the economy expanded rapidly thanks to new technology. The internet and computer revolution had revolutionized the way America did business and the way Americans lived in their homes. The 23 million jobs were created. Wages were rising for the lower middle classes. So things were gradually getting better. Race relations were improving. Education, graduation rates were improving. But still, though, Middle East was still an issue. Clinton did score a number of successes in terms of foreign policy. 1993 sponsored the Oslo Accords, helping Clinton and the other allied nations, helping broker a peace agreement between Israel and Palestine Liberation Organization to allow Palestine to gain a degree of autonomy. After a new terrorist organization formed at that same time, called Al-Qaeda, which in Arabic means the base, by Saudi dissident Osama bin Laden. Clinton knew it was a problem and had tried to disrupt and even take out bin Laden on several occasions, but was never quite able to. 1994, Clinton helped broker a peace treaty between Israel and Jordan, which has stood ever since. However, Al-Qaeda attacks were rising. 1996, military barracks at Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia were bombed by Al-Qaeda. Several American troops were killed. And in 2000, the American ship USS Cole was bombed by Al-Qaeda terrorists. While Clinton had launched a number of air raids and missile strikes on special Al-Qaeda bases, he was still not able to get bin Laden. But you get into and also, at the fall of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, Clinton managed to broker a new alliance between the new government emerging in Russia. NATO has expanded, includes several former Soviet bloc nations in Eastern Europe, And Russia is included in a NATO program called the Partnership for Peace, basically joint training exercises and between Russia and the United States in order to try to encourage peace and cooperation. I get the election in 2000. Vice President Al Gore, who had been a noted intellectual and environmentalist, nominated by the Democrats. Republicans, in a close contest between Arizona Senator John McCain and nominating Texas Governor George W. Bush, the son of George Bush Sr. It turns out to be a very close contest. While the economy is doing well, Republicans kept hammering Gore over Clinton's impeachment affairs. Gore did not really do much to own the Clinton economy. The successes of it tried to distance himself from what was still a very popular president. But Bush was filled with a series of gaffes from one minute to the next, which cost him a lot of votes as well. But in a close election, Gore ended up taking the popular vote by 500,000 votes, getting 48.4% of the popular vote to Bush's 47.9%. On election night, it turned out that Florida was deeply in dispute because Bush's brother, Jeb Bush, had been governor of Florida at that time. And he and his Secretary of State had overseen the purging of tens of thousands of names from the voter rolls, mostly minorities who were going to support Al Gore. And a series of problems with misprints on ballots left Florida deeply in doubt on election night for the next couple of weeks. So, while the state of Florida awarded Bush the state of Florida by a scant 500 votes, which would have been enough to put him over the top and give him 270 electoral votes he needed, Gore contested it, asking for recounts. Governor Bush in Florida was refusing to comply, and eventually the state Supreme Court ordering a full recount of all ballots in Florida. I can understand the thing about recounts is when a candidate requests a recount, they can ask for a recount whatever precinct, wherever they want, the area they're running. Gore could have done just a small piecemeal recount to a few areas, or all of the state if he wanted to. It was his choice. He decides to go with a full recount. And there are some of these ballots, what we call punch card ballots, but some of the little chads on them wouldn't detach entirely. They were trying to question whether that was a counted vote or not. Touch-screen ballots and so forth, paper ballots, all sorts of different mishmash of a voting system used across the state of Florida. Well, Bush was trying to stop the recount the entire way. Eventually, they take it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court issues a decision in the case Bush v. Gore, ordering a stop to the recounts, giving Bush Florida's electoral votes by just 500 votes. And here's the thing. A couple months after the election and after the Bush v. Gore decision, reporters went back and hand recounted all the ballots in Florida using 6 different standards of how to count these different ballots. 3 of them Gore won. 3 of them Bush won. And Bush ends up with officially 271 electoral votes to 266 for Gore. Gore had lost New Hampshire narrowly, lost his home state of Tennessee, which would have been trending very heavily Republican at that time. But Bush comes into office, proves to be a total disaster. He immediately announces massive tax cuts like Reagan had in 1981, announces a new Medicare drug benefit, but has no way of paying for it, and the economy nosedives into a recession. So immediately, this $100 billion surplus becomes At the end of 2001, a $400 billion deficit. The largest deficit in American history. Has made even worse when America was attacked. Bush had taken very little interest in al-Qaeda. Republicans had dismissed Clinton's concerns about terrorism as grandstanding. And Bush had declared in the campaign the U.S. wasn't going to be involved, that the U.S. was not going to be the world's policeman, and that they weren't going to take much interest in al-Qaeda. But nevertheless, throughout the entire summer of 2001, after Bush had been inaugurated, the FBI and CIA had been receiving warnings that al-Qaeda was planning an attack in the United States involving airplanes, hijacking airplanes and using them to attack American targets. Bush was given several briefings on this, warned repeatedly. In fact, at one briefing in August 2001, Bush simply told the man giving the report that said, "You've covered yourself, get out of here." September 11, 2001, 19 al-Qaeda operatives hijacked 4 airplanes and ran them into American targets, killing nearly 2,000 people. This was 9/11, as it was called. It's been called ever since. Horrified the American public. One airplane hit the Pentagon. 2 other airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center, two tallest buildings in New York City. Buildings crumbled under the force of the explosion and the impact. Thousands dead. Most of the casualties, worse civilian casualties, at the World Trade Center in New York that day. So for weeks afterward, police and firefighters sifting through debris, trying to find remains, trying to find whatever they could, survivors, simply trying to sift through and clean up the damage. Many of them developed respiratory diseases afterward, which were plainly obvious just a short time after 9/11. While Bush and his Republican allies in Congress promised aid to help these men pay for their health bills, they never did a thing. A 4th plane was apparently going to target the U.S. Capitol building in Washington. But this plane was overpowered by the crew, by passengers. They managed to overpower the few terrorists on board, retake control of the plane, but in the fight to recover control of the aircraft, it crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Well, immediately al-Qaeda was identified as a culprit. What came to be called the global war on terror began. The first target would be al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and the Taliban fundamentalist Muslim operatives who controlled most of Afghanistan were supporting al-Qaeda. October of 2001, the Afghan war starts. And the U.S. was able to topple the Taliban government in a matter of a few weeks. Al-Qaeda terrorists were sent on the run. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind attacks, went into hiding. It turned out he was spent years in Pakistan. 2012, U.S. Navy SEALs found bin Laden, cornered him, shot and killed him. 2011. But the U.S. was trying to install a government in Afghanistan, had many problems. Basically, Afghanistan is still in a state of civil war. Taliban is still very powerful in many parts of Afghanistan, and a problem for many years. The 9/11 attacks prompted NATO to declare that America had been attacked, and under Article 5 of the NATO treaty, invoked for the first time ever. Prompted an attack on one NATO member and an attack on all the NATO allies went into Afghanistan with the United States. But Bush wasn't satisfied. He and his Vice President, Dick Cheney, plotted other military campaigns. In a speech, Bush declared that an axis of evil existed in the world concerning terrorism. Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, stating those three nations are the chief sponsors of terrorism in the world. In fact, many Americans believe that Iraq somehow was responsible for the 9/11 attacks, though there's absolutely no evidence it was. Most of the 9/11 attackers were actually from Saudi Arabia, like Osama bin Laden. But George W. Bush convinced many Americans that Iraq posed an imminent threat to American safety, alleging its terrorist connections and weapons of mass destruction developments. And Saddam Hussein had a huge cache of chemical weapons and was trying to develop a nuclear bomb. But as it turned out, wasn't the evidence of any of them. Mentioning a petrified nation that we needed to take out Iraq, Bush ordered the invasion in 2003. He was invaded and barreled through the Iraqi army, overthrowing the government of Saddam Hussein. That estimated 13,000 Iraqi troops dead. 7 months later, Saddam's captured, but American forces continued to face resistance from the remnants of Saddam's forces, terrorist Islamic radicals. It was the Civil War and civil uprisings the U.S. feared in 1991 were happening in 2003, 2004, and so on. Violence between Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims expanded civil war in the coming years. It was revealed that Iraq had no weapons of mass destruction and the government had no contact with terrorist organizations. 4,000 Americans died in the years afterward trying to put down the terrorist attacks and terrorist organizations attempting to topple the new Iraqi government. And to this day, 2016, Iraq still remains largely a state of civil war. The U.S. continued to fight in Afghanistan. Thousands killed over the years in Afghanistan. So still today, while Al-Qaeda has been all but destroyed, there are still other organizations attempting to try to topple Western interests, attack Western targets and targets throughout the Middle East. Terrorism still remains a considerable concern, and terrorists are able to move into, go into certain countries in Europe and abroad and stage terrorist attacks with terrifying high casualties. What made the situation even worse was the Bush administration is also sponsoring torture against prisoners. It ordered the CIA began conducting waterboarding and beatings of prisoners in order to try to gain information from them. But the United States, being a signatory of the Geneva Convention, it was illegal. But nevertheless, personnel within the CIA and even the U.S. Army continued to torture suspects. Bush was 2004 was renominated by the Republicans. George W. Bush for the Republicans, John Kerry for the Democrats, former senator from Massachusetts. He's former now, he's Secretary of State now. And Bush ends up winning by a very narrow margin, 53%, 50.7% of the vote, 286 electoral votes to 48.4%, 48.3% for 251 electoral votes. The torture allegations continue to be an issue in the campaign, as well as the floundering economy, continued problems of the war, and the large budget deficit. 2008, because of a deregulation during the Bush administration, the economy disintegrated, led by over-leveraged financial firms, which nearly disintegrated the American economy. More than $1 trillion just evaporated in the stock markets. Budget deficit soared. By the time Bush left office in 2009, the deficit was now at $1.4 trillion, highest ever. Unemployment near 10%. As at that point, Barack Obama, senator from Illinois, ran for president. Beat up former First Lady in New York, Senator Hillary Clinton, campaigning on a simple theme of hope. However, he's also the first African American ever nominated by a major political party. Arizona Senator John McCain saved the Republican nomination. After all, McCain tried to run a campaign of ideas. Many of his operatives and others in the Republican Party and the conservative commentators made veiled attacks on Obama's background and race. See, Obama's father had been an immigrant from Kenya. His mother was a white woman from Kansas. Obama was born in Hawaii. So a lot of people some people actually began suggesting that Barack Obama hadn't been born in the United States, when all the evidence suggested he was born in Hawaii. Some people suggesting that Obama was Muslim, when there was no evidence of that. Obama was a practicing Christian, went to the Christian church regularly. While McCain tried to deflect such attacks, eventually they overpowered his message, and Obama's message of hope and unity united the American people, and him winning fairly soundly. Promising changes to the economy, an end to America's series of problems abroad, and hope and change. King gets 46%. Obama gets 365 electoral votes to 173 electoral votes. America is becoming increasingly polarized for this time period. Obama is able to score a number of successes, including 2010, the passage of the Affordable Care Act, which guaranteed a system of a nationwide health insurance, which eventually allowed many more millions of Americans to become covered by health insurance. Deficits came down. 2016, deficits are now down to $395 billion, the largest drop in deficits in history. Millions of jobs are created. The U.S. eventually pulled out of Iraq, though it is still a dangerous and unstable place, but it's still having many problems in Afghanistan. 2009, Obama banned the use of torture in any government investigation or operation. In fact, many people around the world were so disgusted with George W. Bush that Barack Obama missed his promises of a more peaceful world. He was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize in 2009. But it's still a very polarized nation. Americans have been complaining about politicians for many years. Almost our national pastime. 1992, you actually had the 27th Amendment ratified, which was originally proposed part of the original Bill of Rights, which the 27th Amendment banned congressional pay raises unless another election had taken place. That is, Congressmen can vote themselves a raise, but it can't take place until the raise can't take effect until after the next election. And so Obama faced many criticisms. It's a deeply divided nation. Increasing amounts of corporate donations and increasingly personal attacks on politicians was causing a lot, weighing down the nation. The nation managed to recover from the 2008-2009 recession, but recovery was slow. After congressional Republicans retook control of Congress in 2010, any Republicans refused to help Obama with absolutely anything. In fact, stating quite clearly that his political destruction was their primary goal. We go into 2016, though, and beyond. The issue for America continues to be, what will we face in the future? What will we become in the future? What will we be? We face many challenges, as we had in ages past. Economic, financial, threats abroad. But in the past, we've always faced them. We've always overcome them. So with wisdom, strength, resilience, determination, those traits that made America a strong, powerful, and respected nation, symbol of freedom around the world, America's always survived. The 2016 election at this point appears to be a contest between a Republican businessman Donald Trump and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. She was Secretary of State in Obama's first term. Saying who's to say what will happen for this election at this point in May of 2016. But the question of what happens in history, the same as it's always been. The future is still an unwritten book. We can't turn the page yet to see what's going to happen next until we write that page. And what we become in the future, what we will be for ourselves as a community and nation, is as always, has been, will be today, and in the future, entirely up to you. Bill Clinton liked to say, there's nothing wrong with America, can be fixed by what's right with America. And if American history has been any guide up to this point, that will continue to be the same thing for the future. And that's our course.